what Lincoln is quoting here. He goes on from that and says, may we not justly fear that the awful calamity of, say these words, say civil war. We're going to come back to that in just a minute, because we'd be tempted to say, well, civil war. I mean, that's never going to happen in America. No, I don't believe it will. But I think civil war is a little bit more applicable than we might imagine. One of these two things, civil war or a whole people, is happening all the time in our own lives. And we'll look at that in just a second. The calamity of civil war, which now desolates the land, may be a punishment inflicted upon us for our presumptuous sins to the needful end. God's always trying to get us back to the party. To the needful end of our nations, of our national reformation as a whole people. One more time, say a whole people. Here's what I believe this with all my heart. You're living one of those two. You're experiencing civil war, or you're growing towards a civil war, or a whole people in your own life. Let me just look really quickly at a few categories of in your own soul, your own being, your own mind, will, and emotions, your marriage, your children, your church, your nation. Let's just stop. We got a few minutes, right? You guys aren't in a hurry, right? You guys in a hurry? Let's stop and examine and ask ourselves, in my own soul, am I headed more towards civil war or towards wholeness? Well, what would it look like? What is civil war? Well, civil war is this, something that's supposed to be one, civil, supposed to be one, is being torn apart. Okay, your soul is supposed to be one, whole. Spirit, soul, and body, you're supposed to be one. Well, when it's being torn apart, that's anger, anxiety, depression, rage, fits, all that negative stuff. I think, we've all at some point experienced, we've all had a day, right, of civil war on the inside of us, okay? I think Lincoln's point was, what happens is, you've heard that parable of the frog in the boiling water, that he sits in cold water and they put it on the stove and it slowly warms up to a boil, and he doesn't recognize it. His point was, this happens to individuals, that all of a sudden we're calling an amazing amount of anxiety and all this stuff, we're calling it normal, not recognizing we're on the brink of civil war. We're on the brink of this thing breaking because we've been warming up to it, and we're calling something normal that isn't normal at all. What's normal in God's kingdom is wholeness. Everybody say wholeness. Wholeness, a whole soul. I worked on that all night, that rhyme. I was pretty proud of myself. That was kind of funny. Come on. Wholeness. What does wholeness look like in your soul? That's the joy that comes from God. That's the joy that comes from knowing that I'm building his kingdom. I'm going to work tomorrow, not just to build my own wealth and my own life. I'm going to build God's kingdom. I'm going to love, I'm going to give, I'm going to serve. I'm going to build God's kingdom. And when that truly is your heart, you can't stop wholeness from happening. God rewards, and that joy just flows in your soul. All right, our marriage. Again, my point here is you're headed towards civil war or wholeness in every category. Well, what does civil war look like in a marriage? I'm going to explain it because I know that all of you are sitting here like, well, please describe it, Pastor Brian, because I've never experienced anything remotely similar, and I couldn't possibly comprehend what civil war would look like in a marriage. Just keep looking straight ahead, smiling, and we'll think that's you that can't understand. But the truth is, we've all experienced some of it, haven't we? We've all had our days, haven't we? Right? We just need to keep those days from becoming weeks, from becoming months and years. Gang, we know. I'm not going to describe what civil war looks like in marriage because we've all been there. But what is wholeness? Wholeness, here's my definition. It's just the love. There's a lot of reasons I love Raquel, but let me say this. I think there's this one baseline, that there's a love between us that comes from knowing that we know that God put us together for a reason, and we're going to fight to get that done. We're going to fight to get God's will done more than we're going to fight each other. And the very knowledge that God put us together for a reason, it just creates this is solidness a word? Thank you. If it isn't a word, you know what it means, right? It just creates this solidarity that just because we know God put us together, and it's just solid. Now, children. Now, yes, we want our children to be whole within themselves and have that joy, but we're talking about our family now. I hope we can agree on this. that we can't call ourselves success while our children are running everywhere, all right? When our children are not loving God. Success isn't just us. Success is, are you with me? We want our kids loving God. Am I right? Yes. And that is a part of it. That's why, as an individual, as parents, as a family, our children have to see us pray. They have to see us fast. They have to see us set things aside. We involve our children in our fast. Yeah, we turn the TV off, and our kids, they just love that. David is really looking forward to that over these next 21 days. Now, I'm not going to give you all the details of what our fast is. I mean, if I'm going to be completely, utterly honest, the way it works for us is it isn't a solid 21 days, that there's nothing. But the bottom line is we involve our children in that. And it's not just that you're doing away with something. We love God together. We worship God together. We pray together. We do devotions together. And again, the goal is wholeness. The goal, I see the wholeness in the family and in children being bonds, the strength of bonds that comes when children have watched you sacrifice for God and they follow. I think what can happen if we don't do this, what can happen, and we can kind of kid ourselves that, oh, God is first, but if our bottom line is what's paramount, and we're really just working for ourselves, we can't fool our kids. Because what they're going to do is they're going to live for themselves. You can't fool them. They're going to live, and when we just put number one first, things fall apart. How about a church? We're either headed towards civil war or wholeness. And again, it starts small. What does civil war look like in a church? Well, obviously it being split apart. Where does that start? That starts when we're just kind of attending occasionally, randomly. We're kind of on the outside of the church, and we'll sit there and we'll attend. But if you're just casually attending and not part of the church, here's what's going to happen, I'll guarantee it. You can't help it. You're going to find yourself with entertaining, interesting thoughts. They're actually from a foreign source, but you won't recognize it. You'll find yourself entertaining these thoughts of judging other people, or maybe if you won't do that, you'll feel judged by them. You'll leave feeling, those people think they're better than me. How did you know that? Did somebody walk up to you and say, oh, by the way, I'm better than you? No, that never happens. But we start listening. When you're on the outside, civil war starts happening. It's spiritual warfare, and we start believing lies. A lot of times we look around and we judge people. We look around like, man, I'm too cool for this place. or again, the other way, this place is too cool for me. It's just a method that civil war begins, just something a little bit starts creeping into our brain that separates us a little bit from the people. What does wholeness look like? Wholeness looks like, I love these people. These are the people like Solomon's party that I'm going to worship God with, I'm going to enjoy life with, and I'm going to enjoy God with. These people are just like me. They're exactly like me. These people are dependent on God just like me. These people cannot be a success without God any more than I can. I attend with people who are desperate for God. None of them are better than me. None of them are worse than me. We're all the same. We are all desperate for the grace of God. Are you with me? I can only testify for myself. I don't feel 1 ounce, 1 inch better than anybody. I'm so keenly aware that God, apart from your miracle working power, I can't do it. I can't build we live in, this is no mystery. You've heard this again and again, that Maine and New England is kind of leading a trend in America away from God, away from church attendance for sure. We're one of the top 2 states in America of the lowest church. Somewhere between 2 to 3% of Mainers are in church this morning. Gang, how do we reverse that? Well, again, all you can fully be accountable for is yourself. But if we get together and pray, God said he would heal our land. He wouldn't just heal us, he's going to heal our land, right? That's the goal. We go from there to our nation, and that really is the part. When the church prays, that's when God starts doing. We can't just fix the land. We can't just dictate that. It's not something that can be legislated. I'm not suggesting that we don't do everything we can politically. That's not my point. But I'm saying true, genuine change doesn't come that way. It comes That's why Abraham Lincoln was calling the people to prayer. He's doing everything he can legislatively. He knows if we don't pray, it's not going to work. So what is the answer? How do we stay in that place? We have to pray. We have to humble ourselves and pray.